At this time, we'll call to order the regular meeting of Plan Commission. This is September 22nd, 2025. Kelly, roll please.
Mayor Boyd,
I'm here.
Citizen Member Bush,
Here.
Citizen Member Higgins,
Here.
Citizen Member Raymaker,
Here.
Citizen Member Schilling, Alderperson Hanson,
Here.
Alderperson P-Rock.
Thank you. Item 2, approval of the minutes of the August 25th, 2025 Plan Commission meeting. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Brenda. Discussion or comments? Seems we have none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, public comment on matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to matters under the jurisdiction of the Plan Commission. Anyone in person or virtually have any public comment on matters not on the agenda? If so, now's your time to speak. Just raise your hand or come to the front table. For the second time, any public comment on matters not on the agenda? In virtual land, you can just state your name. For the third and final time, any public comment on matters not on the agenda, now is your time. Very good, and thank you. Item 4, consideration and possible action for a 3-lot and 1 outlot certified survey map at 1100 Employers Boulevard, Parcels WD-D0031, WD-364-D502. Peter?
Thank you. This is a simple 3-lot certified survey map over by the former Humana building. It's dividing the lot into 3 lots and 1 outlot. One of the lots is for commercial and employment use. 2 of the lots are proposed for future multifamily use. And the outlot is proposed to be attached to other lands and potentially for future one-family or multifamily development. Staff recommends approval of this request subject to the condition in your report.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments, motion?
Move to approve. I'll second.
Motion by Alderperson Hanson, seconded by Mark. Discussion or comments that we have for Peter? Seems we don't have any. That said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, consideration and possible action for a 2-lot extraterritorial certified survey map at 2200 Beck Way in Lawrence, Parcel L-451-4. Peter.
Thank you. This is a 2-lot certified survey map just to the south of our city limits in the town of Lawrence. Lot 1 is going to remain, which is the west side of this land division, is going to remain in agricultural use, and Lot 2 is proposed for future development as a subdivision, which we will be reviewing later tonight. Staff recommends approval of this request, subject to the 2 conditions in your report.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments, or a motion?
Just a question.
Mark?
When the requirements differ between us and Lawrence, I mean, how do you monitor and navigate that?
When plat is reviewed by us, if we do recommend approval with these conditions, they do have to come back to us for a signature by our city clerk. At that time, the clerk calls me up to the counter to review the revised CSM to make sure it complies with your recommendation.
Are you asking, Mark, when our development standards are different from their development standards?
Different
I'm
from
sorry.
Lawrence,
Yep.
yeah, the town of Lawrence.
So it all depends on if we have a development or a boundary agreement with the neighboring community or not. And in this case, we have a boundary agreement with the town of Lawrence. And so we would typically, in this case, if it's not within our expanded area or our future boundary areas, we're going to default to their standards. We are going to make sure that they follow their standards and they are follow proper zoning and proper dimensions, those components, because our statement does say compliance with all city, village, or city, town, state ordinances. But if we didn't have a boundary agreement, we would use the powers that we had available to us to make sure that they would be either protecting our future growth, but in this case, we have a boundary agreement with them. So defaulting to theirs at this point.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as part of our review, we do look into their zoning ordinances to make sure that their staff did not miss something. And if we do find something that is questionable, we will call their staff to make sure that it isn't missed.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Shane. Additional discussion or comments? Seems we're all good. That said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, consideration and possible action on a 44 lot and 1 outlot extraterritorial preliminary plat of Rock Ridge Estates at 2200 Beck Way in Lawrence, parcels part of L-451-1, L-452-5. Peter.
Thank you. And as you can see on the graphic, the map on the left side really didn't change very much other than the area being outlined. The eastern half of the previous CSM is still highlighted, and then some lands to the south of it are part of this 44 lot and 1 outlot subdivision. About 4 of the lots are proposed for 2-unit residential developments, and the remainder are for 1-unit residential developments. Staff recommends approval of this request, subject to the conditions in your report.
Thank you very much. Just as we're seeing huge explosion in De Pere, it's good to see the neighbors as well. Anyone have any questions, comments? Motion. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Brenda. Discussion, comments? All right. That said, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7, consideration and possible action for a new 10-foot wide utility easement at 300 Main Avenue, parcels WD-917-1 and WD-917-2. Peter.
Thank you. This also relates to the handout that is on your desk that was provided to us on Friday afternoon by the applicant. This relates to a 10-foot wide utility easement being proposed on the alley side of the 300 block of Main Avenue between Main Ave and Reed Street. This may look familiar to some of you as this is a continued extension of an easement that was requested back in around 2022. This continues that easement extension from the point of the 2022 easement all the way to 4th Street. Planning staff does recommend approval of this request, subject with no conditions in your report. They just recommend straightforward approval. And our applicant is available for questions if you have some.
Thank you very much. I have no questions for this one. It is also very straightforward.
Great.
Everyone okay? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Shane. Discussion, comments? That said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8, consideration and possible action for zoning map amendment to remove PDD overlays from 105 parcels, generally located east of Lawrence Drive, south from Bridgeport Lane, and north from Daytona Speedway. Peter.
Thank you. This is a request that's just to the north of the PDD removal request that we reviewed last month. If you look on the map, this area right here that I'm circling with my cursor, that's the area that we were reviewing last month. So this is a very similar request where we have 4 PDD areas that were created for the purpose of creating the land divisions at the time and their potential uses, but the PDD serves no other purpose other than being confusing lines on our zoning map. So we're recommending their removal. In this case, there are 6 land division areas, and I'll number them on the screen there. Areas 1 through 6. Areas 1, 2, 3, and 5 are the actual individual PDD areas. Areas 4 and 6 were condominium plats that were done after the PDD was created, but that PDD remained over the top of those condominiums. But as we had indicated a month ago, this particular project too, that PDD overlay serves no benefit or no purpose for the residents that live in that area. And their underlying zoning still applies. So staff does recommend approval of removing this PDD overlay because it is outdated.
Thank you very much. Makes sense to me. Questions, comments?
Make a motion to approve.
And I'll second, and we'll have yours in a second. Motion by Alderperson Hanson, seconded by me. Mark, question?
Just out of curiosity, appreciate you reaching out to the property owners. Were there any inquiries since the time we published?
Yes, we had one inquiry on this out of the 105. An individual did come to my front desk. It was one of the condominium plat owners. They had questions about what PDD stands for, so we had a conversation about what that is. And then they had an unrelated interest in how to discontinue or cease a condominium plat from existing.
Okay, very good.
They had no other concerns related to this inquiry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any additional questions or comments? All right, looks like we're all good. That said, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9, consideration and possible action for a conditional use of Type B home occupation in an R245 two-unit district at 600 Lewis Street, Parcel ED-936. Peter.
Thank you. This is a request for a conditional use for a Type B home occupation. In the city of De Pere, we have Type A home occupations and Type B home occupations. Type A does not require a conditional use. It is the Type B home occupation that does. So we'll take you on a short trip so that we all have an understanding on the difference between Type A, Type B, and what the specific review is for. In this particular case, the business that would be there would be considered a Type A business because it is a gunsmith and online gun sales business operating out of a home as an accessory to that home. The petitioner desires to have the ability to have a customer stop at the home occupation, and that's what pushes it into that Type B category. So what we're discussing tonight is whether or not somebody could have a customer stop at their home-based business. The definition that is shown in our zoning ordinance for the difference between Type A and Type B is what I had just identified. Type A being a home occupation in which household residents use their home as a place of work with no employees, customers, or clients coming to the site. That can range from any number of home occupations, from home offices to businesses that somebody runs in their house, inside their house, but they don't have any customers coming. Type B home occupation is very similar, where it's household residents use their home as a place of work and either one non-resident employee or customer comes to the site. And that's why the topic that we're discussing tonight is Type B, because they are desiring to have that customer be able to come to their site. When Type A, and my animation that I just described to us. And then the petitioner actually did make a statement within their application that all customer visits will be by appointment only, ensuring that only one customer is on the site at a time to provide focused service and minimize traffic congestion. You'll find that statement actually within the documents that were given to you and repeated in your staff report. There are 9 general regulations for both Type A and Type B home occupations. So if anyone has a home occupation, whether it's an office or if it's this specific request or any other type of home occupation request, these are the rules that must be followed. I don't know if you want me to go through each of these. This was summarized in your report. I can if you'd like.
Does anyone need him to go through these? It is in the agenda packet. You guys okay with that? Okay, thank you. I think
If we need
we're all
to,
good.
we can come back to that.
Yep.
Then specifically for Type B, there are 2 additional regulations. The first one relates to the requirement for getting a approved conditional use, which is what this request is for. It also identifies that if you have students or teaching students coming to your place of home business, you may have up to 4 students. The second requirement reiterates that non-resident employee or that customer coming to the business. Then as we move on, I just wanted to identify that we do have regulations, and this business is not relating to a request asking for the ability to shoot firearms at the business, but we do have a law in the city of De Pere that relates to loading and discharging of weapons. It prohibits it from people from just being able to do that in their backyard. Then here I just wanted to identify this particular conditional use request does not change that regulation, nor does it allow us to change that regulation, because it is a completely separate chapter from the zoning ordinance. Then when we go on into state statutes, there are certain regulations that prohibit us from being able to say no to this type of a business. This is a home occupation for selling and reselling of guns online. That type of a business is protected by the state statutes, and we cannot make a restriction that is more restrictive than that state statute. And this is the specific state statute 66.0409 parent 2 that identifies that. That does put limitations on the city of De Pere and any other city in the state of Wisconsin from being able to just outright saying no to this type of a use as a home occupation. Then what we also wanted to remind everyone of is that when a conditional use permit is requested because of 2017 Wisconsin Act 67, there are certain criteria that need to be established in your zoning ordinance to be able to have as a criteria for a conditional use. We have that. Those were the 10 or 11 items that I had just shown on the screen. There are also 6 additional general conditional use requirements for all conditional uses. I did not put those on the screen because they weren't specific to home occupations, but our applicant did respond to those in addition to all of these. I believe there are a total of 16 criteria for this type of a conditional use request. If those criteria are met, it makes it very difficult with 2017 Wisconsin Act 67 to say no or to deny a conditional use. I just want to remind you of that. I know you're aware of that, but I just wanted, for your sake and for the sake of others in the audience or online, to know that there are certain reasons that Wisconsin law does prohibit us from being able to say no in certain situations. And that brings me to the end here. Then just reminding you that this is a request for a gun-related use. In addition to those criteria, our applicant did establish some very specific criteria that's basically self-imposing relating to the hours and days of operation. That is part of your application and part of your report for me. So I'll just quickly run through those, where they're proposing hours of operation being 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. on weekdays, and on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., noting that there would be reasons for changing those hours with seasonal adjustments. Visits to the site would be by appointment only, to kind of limit to that one customer at a time. Shipments and deliveries would be scheduled for 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on weekdays to avoid peak traffic times, knowing that there may be some time needed for urgent deliveries, and those would be made by special arrangements. Parking arrangements would not really be established because there's no parking lot for this particular use. There would be no specified drop-off zones or queuing lines because there wouldn't be more than one customer at a time. For structural details, it's identified that they are going to establish 600 square feet for their home-based occupation. There are limits to be less than 25% of your house or 650 square feet, so they do meet that criteria. And any new structure that would be added to the house would follow the site plan and permitting requirements of any residential house that would be putting on an addition. The applicant is aware that putting additions onto a residential house must stay in the context of looking like a residential house, and it cannot be rebuilt to look like a business because this is a residential area. With that, planning staff recommends approval of this request, and I believe the applicant is available if you have questions.
Thank you. Can you just address the notification process?
Sure.
The distance, please? Thanks.
Sure. For conditional uses and many other types of inquiries that are made that come to Plan Commission, there's a 300-foot notification requirement to be done before the Plan Commission meeting. Planning staff did establish a map and a notification list for all property owners that are within 300 feet of this property. And that mailing was sent out in early September. I believe it was September 8th.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments?
Yeah,
Alderperson
Peter,
Hanson?
on that point, can you also talk about why the city didn't proactively go beyond 300 feet and the kind of legal issues that would lead to potentially?
Sure. That distance was established in our zoning ordinance by our common council. That is a distance that has been used for quite some time. It makes all applications fair for everyone and prevents someone from creating a lawsuit in asking why did we send a mailing list a shorter distance or why did we send one a longer distance. It establishes a common 1-point distance that all applicants are notified no matter how far that distance is.
Yeah.
You good?
Does he want to add anything?
Yeah.
Eric?
Essentially, the notice requirement too is to treat everyone, similarly situated applicants, the same based on the criteria at hand. So the problem with doing it, ad hoc or doing it beyond the scope or, within a more limited scope, then you run the risk of treating, similar situated applicants differently, and that raises an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. For those in the audience or watching at home, this is Eric Erdman, our Assistant City Attorney, so he'll help out to answer any questions you might have. At the table, Peter Schleintz and Daniel Lindstrom from Development Services Department. Other questions or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, so Peter, you mentioned the 1995 gun preemption law that the state legislature passed. It says that we cannot restrict home-based gunsmith businesses because doing so would be beyond what state statute says. So really tonight, we're only looking at whether or not a customer can come to this business. Even if we denied the permit, he would still be able to operate the business just without customers, correct?
You are correct. This business without customers being able to come to the door would fall into the category of a type A home occupation. So the transition from type A to type B is the allowance or the disallowance of a customer coming to the door of the business.
And then 2017 Act 67 talks about the city's decision to approve or deny the permit must be supported by substantial evidence. It talks about substantial evidence, meaning facts and information other than merely personal preference or speculation, directly pertaining to the requirements and conditions an applicant must meet to obtain the conditional use permit, and that reasonable persons would accept in support of a conclusion. Just wondering if the city attorney can go into more detail about how substantial evidence can be determined.
All right. So the definition generally under that act and incorporated now by statute is facts and information other than merely personal preferences or speculation directly pertaining to the requirements and conditions an applicant must meet to obtain a permit and that reasonable persons would accept in support of a conclusion. So what that means and what it says in the statute then is if an applicant essentially meets or agrees to meet all of the requirements and conditions specified in the ordinance or those imposed by the board, the city shall grant the conditional use permit. So, and any condition imposed must be related to the purpose of the ordinance. So clearly what that means is if the applicant meets or even agrees to meet the conditions, the discretion of whether or not to deny it is really taken out of the municipality's hands. So, it just takes away that discretion essentially. So, and that's, and that has to be based on the evidence as presented on either side. So.
I think Dan has something.
Dan?
And I can add to that one. And having worked in quite a few municipalities around the state, there's an opportunity to understand what substantial evidence means. And I want to let the audience sort of know that when this first came about, municipalities could arbitrarily add conditions to a conditional use permit that ultimately would make it almost unachievable by any standards. And they were using that inappropriately. And so if somebody could simply go out and say, the ordinance requires that you not impact the health safety of a community, and a community member would come up and say, I feel that this would have too much traffic concerns, and therefore I believe you should deny it, and the municipality would deny it just based off of almost that gut check feel reaction. Under Act 67, if there's a statement made by a neighborhood member, by the Plan Commission, it has to be based in evidence. If you're going to add a condition to it to address those concerns, it has to be based in evidence, i.e. in a traffic concern situation, there's traffic studies that have been done. There's other things that have gone on place. You simply just can't add an arbitrary condition based off of a feel of a commission member member and or the public.
Yeah, and then my other question was, one of actually the first conditional use criteria does say the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. So I'm wondering kind of what evidence would need to be provided in order to have that substantial evidence that it could meet that bar. Just a sort of general feeling that it might negatively impact the neighborhood, would that be sufficient, or would there need to be more evidence or data?
I can start with that. So first of all, my understanding is this is the first type or the first type B home occupation of this type of business, right? So we don't have, a easy comparison in the city, right, to this type of activity. So my own opinion, I guess, is a hypothetical for what evidence would be, like I think Dan mentioned, like a traffic study for congestion. If there's an allegation that it's going to lead to, not this, but something would lead to, traffic, we'd have to have like a traffic impact study, right? So taking that to, this type of activity, I think, something that was contrary to it, depending on what the application says, but a contrary would be a study that shows, like-sized cities and, deteriorative impact on, a neighborhood or something like that based on a study or report, probably from multiple sites. And that's just a hypothetical, but it would have to be like a report or a formal report, similar to like a traffic study in the area of traffic congestion.
And in terms of this petition in front of us tonight, the conditional use permit is for home occupation B, which is for the incidental employee and customers visiting the site. Home occupation A isn't under the conditional use. So again, if you took away the component people visiting the site, we wouldn't be here tonight having this discussion. And so again, if you're making an objection based off of the use, it's based off of what the actual conditional use permit is, which is the conditional use home occupation for somebody to type B for somebody to visit the site. So I want to make sure that there's a clear distinction about just providing substantial evidence on a type of use that could be permitted via a home occupation A versus the home occupation B, which is the customer and employee visiting the site. So your argument there has to be made that the customers visiting the site, period of use, regardless of if it's gunsmithing, instrument repair, quilting, whatever it is, you're having to make the case that people visiting the site is a detraction from your neighborhood, I guess you would say. So regardless of use, it's people visiting the site. In this case, that's the issue.
One other question, quick. You mentioned the applicant has to agree to meet the conditions and requirements. Do they also need to have kind of a detailed plan on how they're going to meet it? And staff does here in the memo does say here, there are multiple petitioner response statements that include "I will," unquote. The response statement should be clearly defined and or completed prior to the scheduled Common Council review of the conditional use request. Provide a list of each item and how it's being addressed or completed. So again, I'm just wondering, how detailed does the applicant need to get? If they do not provide really detailed plans on how they're going to meet the requirements, would that be grounds to potentially deny the permit?
When we were aware that several of the comments did identify as "I will," our understanding for that is that part of the business may not be fully operational, so they are speaking in future tense because they don't have a built business running yet, and that's why what we identified when creating that condition was the ability to go back to the petitioner and say, okay, as you're developing this business and identifying your "I wills," let's get those changed to the "I am doing this" or "I am doing that," and also identify the items that were listed as whether they are relevant to the specific conditional use or not. The conditional use section of our code is quite extensive, and it relates to all kinds of things from very, very large businesses to small home occupations. So there are a number of those items where the petitioner did identify and that they will be working on information, and they might be items that they don't even need to provide information for because it wouldn't relate to the scenario that their business is located in. But to make sure that it does create enough information that would be helpful for that final decision by council, we will be working with them to make sure that anything that is "I will" that should be relevant information is provided.
And one follow-up to that one, not all the I will statements are pre-application. Some of them are ongoing communications with neighbors, and so some of those I wills just can't be met until the use is under operation. So there's an opportunity there for figuring out at what level do some of those I wills get triggered, I guess you would say. And as Peter mentioned, there's more I wills, or there's more requirements that this applicant has put together than what we would typically would have required if it wouldn't have been the type of use that we're seeing here today. If this was somebody who did, like I said, some other light repair, some home instruction of music, we wouldn't have seen this level of conditions. And so there's a lot of stuff that's here that's above and beyond to provide more information to the Planning Commission and to the council.
Other questions? Anyone else?
Well, I had a question about that item 4 as well, because obviously this is a very extensive amount of criteria that's being commented on, and, you know, with the commentary, I can understand it's why it's I will at this point, but assuming, you know, the business is open and it changes from I will to I am, is there some sort of ongoing monitoring that goes on?
In most situations, just like anything else, we would be complaint-based driven. That's the way our common council has directed us to act. We are not proactively out knocking on doors and doing those things. So it's on the community and the neighbors to keep it, you know, for lack of a better term, keep an eye, use our See-Click Fix portal. That's how we keep things up. If we do find that there's a violation in that time, there is powers under the Plan Commission and Common Council to revoke a conditional use permit if they are not following the conditions. There's a standard process for that.
Thank you.
All good? Yep. All right, there are a few people here that might want to speak on this, but I think it's probably important to hear from the petitioner himself. So is the petitioner here? All right. Would you come to the front table right there, please, and give us your name and address? And then you can just kind of add and say what you like regarding your application. So just have a seat, name and address.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Dan Farnsworth. I live at 600 Lewis Street here in De Pere. So the reason why I put this application in, right, is one, it's one of my passions, okay? I served in the military for 4 years. I was honorably medically retired out. I've deployed twice overseas. Okay, so I have a lot of training and background when it comes to these firearms and everything else. Now, the biggest thing, right, is I have a safety mechanism within my home for that in my business area. So the room that everything will be housed in, everything will be closed up at the end of business day and locked. So the safe door is about 4.5 inches, about 4.5, 5 inches thick, encased in concrete. The only person that's going to have that code is going to be me, and it's also going to have biometrics on it. The other thing too is, the biggest thing too is a safety factor, right? I want to make sure the community's safe and everything else because I care about that. I served at Fort Hood, Texas. I don't know if you ever heard the news about Fort Hood, Texas. It was a bad place, and I was there for a lot of it. Okay, so I take that very prideful of me. I want to take good care of my community, but I also want to give back to the community, tax dollars, everything else to help our community grow. And there's not a lot of people in my profession anymore, but there's a big need for that profession.
Very good, thank you. One of the conditions, and we can just talk back and forth freely here, is for you to do outreach with the neighbors around you.
Yep.
Yeah, I would strongly suggest it's something you might want to do.
Yep.
Maybe just kind of wander around. I'm not saying the entire city, but at least within that area. Or if people come to you or talk to you afterwards. That goes a long way to help explain some misconceptions or concerns people might have. So that would be quite helpful. I also want to commend you on applying for the permit. There are times where this may not even happen. So you knew this would happen and you would get some interest in your occupation. So I applaud you for that. Does anyone have any questions for the petitioner? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, thanks again for being here. As was mentioned earlier by staff, we do have an ordinance not discharging weapons in the city. So just wondering your plan to operate the business, given that fixing and servicing firearms might require that they occasionally be discharged to make sure they're working properly.
Yep. So I'll discharge and fully function checks So there's two different types of function checks, right? There's dry firing, which is the use of snap caps. There's no live ammunition or anything in that, right? It's just dry, there's nothing to it. Then there's a live fire actuation of it. That would be held out in Shiocton shooting range. I'm a member there, and that's where I'd be doing the testing of those firearms to make sure they're fully functional and operational. So there would be nothing to be used within the city limits at all.
And then you mentioned you plan to utilize soundproofing. Just kind of wondering what specific noises do you think need to be soundproof for?
So I have a little Dremel, so I got to do some polishing here and there. So I am very hard of hearing because I worked with helicopters for 4 years, so I'm almost deaf in my left ear, and I hate loud noises. It's not that loud. I just do it as a precaution. So just like when I was in the Army, if, how do I put this? So like if the minimum standard's here, my standard's up here. That way if I fall a little bit, I'm still within my correct standards.
Do you have a business registered in the state of Wisconsin yet?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And any experience running this type of business?
So not so much on the civilian side. When I was at Fort Hood, I was a specialist in the Army when I retired. I ran the whole hazmat team of Fort Hood. So I worked under a Warrant Officer 5. I'd have to go around all the bases and everything and doing what I had to do. And a Warrant Officer 5 is equal to about a 2-star general. So I could, go up there and I had to maintain all those hazmat stuff. And I mean, those are pretty high standards, especially internationally.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you mentioned minimizing external signage, but it sounds like per the memo from staff, no signage would be allowed. Is that okay with that?
Yep. So that would be 100% accurate. When a customer has to come over, I will direct them where the point of entry is for that, for them to come in.
All right. That's all I got.
While he's here, anyone have any more questions? Anything else that you'd like to add?
I'd like to add also too, the biggest thing, is you want to give back to the community best you can, whether it's tax dollars, different things too, right? And in my line of work, I want to make sure that if someone brings me a firearm, right, doesn't matter if it's old, new, or whatever, I can fix it properly than them trying to do it in their home, where they could do it the wrong way, and then they go to test fire it, and now they really hurt themselves, or even pass away from that action. You want someone certified to do it. No matter, if someone came to your house and you need a plumbing issue, you'd probably want someone certified to do it, right? That's the biggest thing for me, and I take very big pride in that.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. All right, I'll make a motion to open the meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Brenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The reason we did this, my assumption is some of you might want to speak. So if you want to speak, there was no sign-up sheet. So you can raise your hand, I'll identify you, go to the front table, give your name and address. You got roughly 3 minutes to say what you'd like to say. Staff will then write down your comments. When all is said and done, we'll respond to whatever you had stated that might need us to answer the question. If you have to come up again to, rebut, we can do that as well. Our preference is based on the number that you kind of limit, what you say and try not to repeat if you can help yourself that someone else had said. So, who wants to start? I've got someone right in the front right there. Come on up. Give us your name and address.
Christopher Thompson, 1321 Co-Pilot Way. I am here as the superintendent of the Unified School District of De Pere. The concern that we have as a district is not that such a business would be operating within the city of De Pere, but the location of this business as it pertains to Foxview Intermediate School, Dickinson Elementary School, its location and proximity to not Our Lady of Lourdes, Notre Dame of De Pere, as well as the police department, the fire department, and the Mulva Center. There are so many different places that are close to where this business will be run. I am concerned by the fact that more evidence, more discussion is needed around safety and security measures, as well as impact assessments as it pertains to these different locations right now. We haven't heard enough of that, and I would like to ask that the commission look at these, discuss this about how We're going to protect not just the students, the staffs, but the children that are not at school but walking past this location before and after during the school day. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? I see a hand in the back. Come on up. Yeah, standing up was very helpful. You won that contest. Congratulations. The taller ones get to come up. Yeah. Name and address, please.
Nicole Slavin. I live at 339 South Michigan Street. I have two questions. I'll make them quick. The first one would be specific to the petitioner's application. Throughout the application, the word workshop is used. That was a little troublesome to me. The word workshop denotes that there will be manufacture in play. I don't know if the conditional use permit allows for the manufacture of firearms, but that was not in scope with anything else that pertained that I saw. So I do have concern that guns would be created, that there'd be firearms created on site. My second thing would be to you specifically, to this commission, and then also the Common Council in general. The idea of self-mandating or self-reporting is really, really problematic to me as a community member. The idea of children being around, I would hate, as I think most of my neighbors would, if something did happen, to have that be the trigger point for how we're enforcing this. To me, it seems like I would ask that we could go above and beyond if this does move ahead. Our tax dollars are put to good use, that there's something put in play that we know what is happening there. The idea of it just being behind closed doors is really scary to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. We're open. Anyone else want to speak? I'm kind of looking around here. Come on up.
Evan Earhard, 407 South Michigan Street. A couple things. I would like to commend the petitioner in his I wills of safety and cleanup. If you go by the location today, it's probably not the star example on the block of what we would want representing our city. So there is some work to be done there. I'm troubled by it's an I will, and I don't quite see where the enforcement of that is. Looking at your voting today, and in 3 weeks, I believe that the council will vote on this. I would like to echo the thoughts on the proximity to Foxview and Notre Dame, and several of the students do have to walk past this location, or that would be their primary direction. I believe it's a school district policy that if you're under 2 miles, you have to provide your own transportation, which in some cases could be walking. And since those students go through active shooter drills on a regular basis, I am concerned that walking past where there might be someone coming in or out of a building with a weapon might cause undue trauma on fairly young students. I also would say that the lot sizes where this location is are kind of awkward. They're not the full 60 by 120 lots that you see traditionally in De Pere. I believe the lot this location sits on is a half lot, and the lot directly to the south of this is not as wide as a normal lot. So you've got a lot of concentration just in those 3 houses. So there isn't a lot of room to, if there's additions, I don't know how the code is on that, but to allow for space between residents there. Finally, my understanding of the law, and I'm sure there's people here that know it much more, is that there's a school safe zone, which is 1,000 feet from a school, and this does not fall in that zone. It doesn't preclude the owner or the business person from having firearms, but they're not to be transported in public, which includes sidewalks, the street, and probably the parkway strip between the sidewalk and the street. So that sort of leaves us back to the parking issue. Someone who would have to park on this small lot in order to go in if they were either taking a weapon in or taking a weapon out, by my understanding of the law.
Thank you. Thanks, Evan. Appreciate it. Anyone else want to speak while we're open? For the second time?
Let me
For
look.
the third and final, Dan?
I'm just making sure I'm online. I just wanted.
All right, we'll check. Anyone online want to speak? If so, just state your name. I just can't see it up here. Do you see anything?
There's two other members that are online right now that aren't city staff or council chambers.
Anyone out there in virtual land, if you want to speak, now's your time. Okay, I think we're good. I'll make a motion to go back to regular session.
I'll second.
Motion by me, seconded by Brenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Dan, Peter, Eric, here we go.
Well, we were frantically writing as fast as we could.
I saw you guys
There's
feverishly writing things out.
Anybody,
so.
if we miss anything, please let us know. So the first one that came in, first comments were not the concern of the business in the city, but the location to the schools, the mobile cultural center, and others. And then I also sort of want to lump back into this next one, which comes, or the last one, which came in about the school safe zone. So going back to that, the school safe zone regulation, I believe that's 948-605. Possessions of firearms in the school zones. There's certain exceptions to that one, and so that's listed under Para B on that one. Specifically Para B3, which is a person possessing a gun that is not loaded and in any of the following is encased or is locked in a firearms rack in the motor vehicle. So as one of the conditions is the firearms that would be to and from the site would have to meet those requirements. And that's just not our conditional use permit requirements. That's the state statute requirement. So not only the business, but the customer at that point would be having to follow those same stipulations. And so again, that gets back to.
So then the firearm would be in a case.
Has to be in a case and has to be, or if it's in a vehicle, locked in a firearms rack that is on the motor vehicle. And so that's, again, the state requirements under 948-605. And so there's those components. The second one that we saw, or the second one that came off that first question, which was more evidence to the safety and concerns of how to protect people walking by to and from the site. If the Plan Commission directs us to do some more research on that one, we can try. Challenge I have with all of you is we're coming up to hunting season here, and there's going to be people to and from their own homes that are within that same school zone doing the same thing that have firearms in that location. And so I just want to understand a little bit of what direction we need to go with that one if you request that. But again, coming back to the conditional use permit, it's the people coming to and from the site, not so much the actual use itself. All right. Workshop versus workshop for the actual manufacture or the creation of guns on site. And so as part of our conditional use, if you go back to, I don't have the standards in front of me here, Peter, I just wanted to, home occupations and all other activities shall be that is completely internal to the site. And so when there's a request or the clarification of what manufacturing means on site, I think could be some discussion there about that one. But again, the conditional use permit is for the people coming to the site, not the proposed use. Without people coming to the site, we wouldn't be here tonight. So again, we're trying to, Act 67, we're trying to follow the conditions of adding conditions that are related to the request. So the request is people coming to the site. So the idea of mandating and self-reporting, how will we do follow-up inspections? Back to our question about being compliant and equal across the board. We don't do citywide conditional use permit checks. It's not in our ordinance. We're not directed by the council to go out and check every conditional use permit in the city on an annual basis. Until that changes, we would be selectively enforcing or selectively inspecting on something that isn't been reported to us. So if we want to change from that one, that has to be a direction from the Common Council and a change in the code that is a proactive inspection of all conditional use permits. All conditional use permits, not just one. So again, there's a little bit of having to play due process equally across the board, and that's where I always caution. I've been in communities in which they did proactively and selectively impact or inspect conditional use permits, and it didn't end well from a court battle situation. So I just want to make everyone aware of that. Peter, did I miss anything on those ones so far?
Not on the first two.
Okay, and then we also heard about the property not being the cleanest, and this owner or this applicant has owned the site for a few months now. I would say the whole purpose of the conditional use permit for home occupation is to make sure that you still see the home. So regardless of if this happens here or not, that site should meet city requirements. And again, we are complaint-based driven, so if there's concerns about the site exterior appearance of the site, follow the process for the C-click fix on our typical process, and we'll get through that one. There are some concerns, but again, we are a complaint basis driven policy by the direction of the Common Council. So again, I want to kind of separate those two things out because we should be looking at one from a property maintenance standpoint and one from a use standpoint. We also had a question about space between the residential units or the residential components. If there's expansions, they do have to comply with the zoning code requirements, regardless if that expansion space is a bedroom, a place where they do work, a garage, it all has to comply with the same standards. And so if we want, we can go through what that zoning district standards are. That is the R245 zoning district. So I can walk through what those standards are if we need. But those standards apply to anybody within those zoning districts. So again, trying to keep everyone the same. And did I miss anything on those ones, Peter?
No.
That was trying to read my chicken scratch here. Did I miss it? Did you guys take any notes up there?
I
Did I
did. There, you got it all.
Okay.
Everything.
So that's ours, but that's just, again, that's our response of staff of how we've following our ordinance, following statutes. Attorney Erdman and yourselves may have more questions to us as well.
Attorney Erdman, do you have anything to add?
No, just to reiterate, on the school zone specifically, that there are exceptions built in for that being unloaded and encased in a vehicle. And again, that goes to the, to the home occupation, but the concerns are the same, and that's regulated by a separate statute as well.
Thank you. Those in the audience I think everyone was addressed, so I hope you're satisfied in that. You didn't hear what the assistant city attorney just said. Here it goes again.
The concern with the school zone inquiry, there's a set, like Dan mentioned, there is a separate statute that governs that regardless of whether, the home or the type A, type B home occupation. There are exceptions to the prohibition generally of a possession of a firearm within certain distance within school zones. And those exceptions include that, if a firearm is unloaded and encased in a vehicle, that's, one exception to the school zone prohibition. So that's regulated by a separate statute regardless of this particular conditional use permit home occupation. So there's that rule in place under a separate statutory section.
Did y'all get that back there? Thanks, sorry. I know there's a little wall there too, so it's kind of tough to navigate around. Everyone else that spoke, questions were answered, and I'm sure they'll come up again at council as well too if it comes through here. The applicant, are we okay as far as things were answered? The petitioner? Well, might have some issues, but generally you're okay?
Yes, everything's good.
Thank you. Anyone up here, any other questions or comments you might have? Alderperson Hanson.
It mentions in the memo that it will be no more than 600 square feet. I believe the house is about 1,100 square feet, so is the fact that it'd be more than half the house an issue?
It depends on if as part of the applicant, they've made the claim to us, and we haven't done how much of the basement is finished and how much of those components are finished. That's one of the standards that would come back in play if we were ever to find a violation of it. And so that's one of our follow-ups is, again, kind of some of the I wills prior to the council meeting.
And then, let's see. The applicant says that he will conduct a site plan. Is that a requirement that we have?
No.
Okay.
Peter, go ahead.
The site plan requirement would only apply if they were doing an extension or an expansion to their property.
Okay. And then the applicant agrees to maintain open line of communication with the neighbors. That's one of the conditions that he agrees to. If he does not adhere to that, is that potential grounds to revoke the permit?
So as you get through the state statute requirements of all the conditions of what is listed there, the applicant electing to do more than what the required conditions are in the city's zoning ordinance, I would say that, and Attorney Erdman, you feel free to addition to that one, but in my past, anybody going above and beyond, they are not adding self-conditions to them. It's just them doing above and beyond at that point. So you'd have to come back to, are they violating the conditions that are in your ordinance, not in addition to what they've also said that they were going to do. So again, kind of back to the evidence-based, have they violated the ordinance?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's correct. I mean, as long as they're essentially following the conditions. And if they're going above and beyond with additional conditions, it probably becomes somewhat of an open question. But if they're going above and beyond in general, it, probably wouldn't be penalized necessarily based on one above and beyond. That's, in theory. So.
Good. Other questions or comments from anyone else? Before I make a motion, I want to thank everyone for coming in. We appreciate the information, the feedback, obviously meeting the petitioner as well. He understands if this does go through, that it goes to a next step at council, correct? And that is October 7th. Clearly, we as a plan commission are charged with a duty, and we are kind of bound. Go ahead, Peter.
That's actually October 21.
Class 2 notice requires us to be, it'll be an October 21st.
Yeah, it's a Class 2 public notice.
My apologies. My apologies. If you haven't heard that, October 21st. So I checked the calendar and everything. I thought it was going to be very accurate on that one. So based on notification, that's how that would work. Okay. So again, based on all of that and the fact that we really can't do a whole lot about this, I will make a recommendation to approve the conditional use request for a Type B home occupation at the address addressed and listed in the agenda packet, subject to all the conditions that are in the packet. That was my motion.
May we add the comments made today by the people that stepped up and have those be part of the documentation that would...
They'll be part of the record.
They'll be part of the record.
Kelly's taking notes and it'll be part of the minutes.
But how you address them as well?
Yeah, that'll be part of the minutes as well.
Right.
Sorry, Kelly, you're going to have to really write this time.
I know.
I'll second the mayor's motion.
Thank you. Motion by me, seconded by Shane. Additional discussion or comments? Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, so in addition to being plan commissioner, I'm also an alderperson. This property is in my council district. I've had a lot of conversations with my constituents since the public notices went out. I really appreciate all those conversations. I appreciate them bringing all these concerns. I sympathize with a lot of the concerns they have. As an alderperson, though, I also take an oath to uphold the state of Wisconsin Constitution, which also includes the state statutes, even when I don't agree with the state statutes. So in reading the state statute, it is very clear that as long as the applicant agrees to meet the requirements and conditions and has a plan to, we have to approve it. So again, even if I don't agree with the state statute, I'm bound to follow that. And the only thing that could change is if the state legislature were to change Act 67, but that would be something you would have to contact state legislators about. That's beyond our control here. So I am going to vote for this. Again, recognizing the concerns that the residents have and sympathizing with those, but then also understanding that I have to abide by the state statute. And our hands are really kind of tied on this one. And that's just something that the state has done. And, I believe in local control. This is an instance where local control is not being upheld, in my opinion. But it is what it is, unfortunately. And any changes to this, again, have to go through the state.
Thank you very much. Well put. Additional questions or comments? Again, thanks for all the work that all you put into this as well, too. It is very entailed and very detailed. That said, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Again, October 21st is when we're going to see it next. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. Thanks. What do we have next here? Item 10, discussion. And you don't have to stay for this if you don't want to, so you do have permission to leave. Yeah, you're welcome. Item 10, discussion about the community living arrangement use in the DPMC Zoning Ordinance, Article 7, and potential zoning ordinance revisions to clarify the use. Peter, I believe that's you?
Yeah, this is a discussion-only item, so we don't need to make any final decisions. We're just looking for some direction from you on what we should do regarding community living arrangements and how it's defined in our uses table and uses section of our zoning ordinance. We recently had an inquiry for a 55-ish unit community living arrangement in the city of De Pere. When the previous zoning ordinance was in place, it defined community living arrangements kind of as CBRFs for children, but this would be a community living arrangement, for assisted living, which it tends to be more for adults. In our 2023 rewrite of our zoning ordinance, we corrected that. We broke out group living for children, group living for adults, and used the title community living arrangements for things like assisted living and CBRFs. The one thing we did not do in our zoning ordinance is we did not break it down by the size of the community living arrangement. And we noticed that in the state statute's description of community living arrangements, it breaks it down to buildings of size for 1 to 8 residents, 9 to 15 residents, and then 16 or more residents. So that's one thing we'd like to discuss is, should we take our zoning ordinance and break it into that type of a 3 size category? And then should we also take a look at where the use is allowed? Because as we have larger facilities of this nature, we're only allowing it in certain residential and mixed use districts. We did not include it in, like, say, a C district in the city of De Pere. Can
you clarify again, C district?
C is a commercial district. Yeah. It tends to be along highway, like say Highway 41, like in the area where Menards and Walmart are. That strip along there. Then in a couple other spots like on Ashland Avenue, on the northern end of the city. Basically on this map, colors don't show up real great, but it's the areas that show up orange on this map. So you can kind of see there's, this is kind of that Walmart area that's stripe along the freeway. We have a little patch of area that kind of ends up here, up here along Ashland, and then there's another area on the east side, kind of in this area. Those are the 4 or 5 larger C district areas. One thing I'd like us to talk about is that, and then decide if this is a topic that we should just leave it alone, leave it unchanged. Is this something worth changing in the zoning ordinance, and we should make that change as soon as possible? Or is this something that we should consider for change in the zoning ordinance, but perhaps change it with our annual changes at closer to the end of the year? If you do turn to page 80 of your documents, I did create a table with about 8 communities, including the city of De Pere, and compared our districts where this type of a use is allowed, where it's allowed by conditional use, and where it is prohibited. To make it simple, I took every community that didn't have the zoning districts we have and kind of squeezed them to fit the closest match, so that it kind of gives us a little more of an apples to apples comparison. So like when you look at the city of Green Bay, it references an MX1 and an MX2 district, even though we know they don't have those 2 zoning districts. But I put their most comparable in there. As you can see, we have residential categories and X-use categories for the city of De Pere, and they're either permitted or they are prohibited uses. I don't propose we add conditional uses, but we may want to consider adding additional other categories, such as the C district for our larger. And with that, I would like us to discuss if that's a change we should make to our zoning code sooner or later. At the bottom of that table that you see on that page 80, that is a staff suggested set of changes to our use district table.
Dan?
I'm going to summarize Peter in a very succinct way.
I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
No, Peter and I had an uh-oh moment where we had somebody approach us with a assisted living facility and said, I want to go in XY location. That location was a commercial zoning district, and it was upwards of 50-plus units. And we said, well, our code would say no to that one, but it would say yes to that one in the middle of a single-family residential neighborhood. That's probably a situation we need to rectify. And so that's the reason why we took a dive into that split arrangement of 1 to 8, 9 to 15, and 16 plus to start to fit where those fall in place. Community-based residential living facilities, CBRFs, they're meant to fit within the neighborhood when they're the right size and scale. Our code cut it off at there's one size and scale and it fits in one location but not the other, and we found that that was a little bit of a uh-oh. So that's the reason why we want to have a conversation today. In addition to that one, should this come back at a quarterly meeting or an annual meeting, or if the person comes to us and says, I'd like to move forward with this project, we would have to deny it. So do we want a situation that we want to deny something that probably is a good fit, but our code says no? So we want to know, do we want to rectify it sooner than the current time frame? Is it important enough for us to do, or do we only want to address it if that person comes forward? Or address it on the next 2026 first quarter.
Person has come forward, right? So
They've come forward, but they haven't submitted a formal application.
Okay, but
kicking tires and doing some other stuff.
But we
But
recognize.
it did raise the flag on us.
We have a problem here, so, yeah.
Well, it just makes sense to include it in the commercial segment of this. And what was the rationale for having different size numbers?
So it fits within the characters of your zoning districts. And so the 1 to 8 fits roughly within closer to a single family neighborhood.
Right, but ours were different than the state's.
Ours was just blanket across the board.
It didn't matter if it was 1 or 500.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, and so, yeah, then we might as well match up with the state then, right? Yeah. But, moving ahead on the agenda, looking at the comprehensive plan, having assisted living facilities in anticipation of the growth and everything, I mean, I'd hate for us to miss an opportunity if one was coming along. So being fleet of foot makes sense to me.
Totally agree. That's one opinion.
I completely concur. I think we should do everything possible to try to make the assisted living facility work even in a commercial zone. Looks like Wausau is the only one that currently allows it, if I'm reading the table correctly.
It was kind of difficult. Some of these communities do have a GX2 category, but they didn't have like an equivalent of where we, because GX2 is the closest to a C district, but they didn't have geographic regions that were really comparable to our C district. So I was a little bit reluctant to take some of those categories from GX2 and put them into C, except for Wausau, because it was pretty point blank that their C was our C.
A prime example of this one is I look at, and I gave Peter this example, on Lineville Road, there's a new Summit Credit Union, there's a Purveya, and in between that one, there's an assisted living facility. It's a commercial corridor, it falls within that one, but the code sections don't line up. But from an all-purpose standpoint, it's in a commercial corridor, and it's a certain size-wise. Our commercial corridor is pretty much geared to being adjacent to state highways, county highways, and stuff like that, where Green Bay's may not be, Ashwaubenon's probably isn't. They're probably more local commercial zoning districts and stuff like that. So our code is unique. We're probably most closely matched to actually Alloway because they wrote their same code with the same consultant that we did. So it's probably the most closely matched, but yeah.
Good.
We don't need a motion, right?
It's just discussion and we're talking.
Yeah.
Sounds like, kind of.
Yeah, this is where we're asking you for direction. Do you want us to hurry up and make a fix? Do you want us to do it when we do our annual fixes, kind of towards the end of the year, or is it really not worthy of a change at all?
Well, I think based on the fact there's some interest in it.
Number two.
Bring it back.
Yeah,
Okay.
number two.
We need it.
Yeah. Don't want to wait. Is everyone good with that?
I'm good with that.
And are you all done? Okay. You don't have to be. You can say more.
Oh, did I give you the right one?
I don't know whose mouse this is.
Are we just swapping the mouse over, or are you going to say something else, Dan?
Nope, just get the mouse.
You're just anticipating the next thing.
Yep.
Item 11, discussion about the proposed comprehensive plan update draft chapters, places, land use, housing, downtown. Dan.
All right. As I said last time, this is the first of 3 sort of status update meetings, and I wanted to provide, for somebody listening in this time who didn't listen in last time, again, I want to do a brief overview of why we're doing this. We're doing this because, 1, we're required to keep an updated comprehensive plan. So our priorities are to, in this comprehensive plan, closely align with our strategic vision that was created in 17-18, along with the branding that went along during that time frame. So the initial priorities during that time frame were to, update based off of market conditions, update based off the 2020 census, streamline the plan into a more user-friendly document, and develop the West Downtown Plan or another at-large downtown plan here at this point to mirror the framework of the Cultural District Master Plan. That last bullet point has sort of shifted the target as we've gone, and actually we're about to release a Downtown Master Plan RFP here over the next few weeks. But those are our basic priorities, are to come into compliance with state statutes, an update based off of the 2020 census data, and update with current market conditions. We have challenges, as I mentioned last time, but for any new audience members listening, our original plan was funded with an equivalent grant of $525,000. We don't have that today. Everything is self-funded, and so at this point, we did an $80,000 West Downtown plan as well as a comprehensive plan. And so the draft document you see in front of you is the work of Smith Group and staff to get this document to where it's at. And you're only seeing through these first few chapters about probably 2/3 of it here at this point. So, but the document sizes continue to grow, and the document structure continue to get a little bit more convoluted, trying to find where conditions are, where standards are, where policies are. It's really hard to find. And so this downtown and comprehensive plan are meant to really coalesce and create a more cohesive document that is easily to understand from the public's perspective. I always give this analogy. Comprehensive plans for the past 50 years are made by planners, and so typically they're designed by planners and written by planners and understood by planners. Our process here is to kind of flip that on its head and really make it a user-friendly document so non-planners can read the document, and that's one of our biggest charges here. So strategic plan and branding had some goals in it that were really meant to be the overarching features, and we felt that those were good features to continue to maintain. So you start to see those elements work their way throughout the document. And so there was 4 or 5 main elements of that strategic plan that really kind of created the contact points moving forward. So that's those first 4 bullets that you see on there. Those are listed, actually the stated goals of the strategic plan. Grow the downtown, encourage growth of business, embrace, enhance, and connect active open spaces throughout the community, and increase and coordinate unique activities to liven the city. So how do all of that feed into required elements of the comprehensive plan? And so we decided to put all those elements into buckets. And so we have the people bucket, the places bucket, and the systems bucket. And those are kind of overarching themes to how to achieve the goals of the strategic plan. And so the people bucket includes economic development and cultural resources. Places bucket includes the housing, land use, and the downtown, which is an added chapter, not required. And the systems includes transportation, natural resources, and community facilities and services. So next month we'll be meeting to talk about that last systems component. But we also did pull some stuff out of this draft, which is a lot of the market data survey that kind of worked its way throughout time. We've amended some of those components. We've pulled out the very specific intersection treatments that are just outdated at this point. And then we've also taken the bike and ped plan, and we'll use that as an appendix in the comprehensive plan moving forward until we adopt a new bike and ped plan. And so Brown County is always updating their bike and ped plan. Probably something that we would go back to Brown County in the future to update a bike and ped plan. And then the implementation chapter. You saw about a 20-page Excel document here. That's the implementation chapter that is a summary of all the items. That's what the planners are going to use on a day-to-day basis to say these are the goals of the comprehensive plan. So that's been revised as well. So I have all of the things from the places chapter, the downtown, the housing, and the land use in the implementation chapter here. I'm not going to go through it because it's about 20 slides, 20 to 30 slides, but it was in your packet. If you have questions, I will go to those slides to talk about. But the steering committee has gone through each one of these, wordsmith them to what they feel is a comfort level. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Mark, for participating in that process and sometimes painful process.
Thank you.
But they've helped wordsmith. And so what you see in front of you has been very thought out by that organization. But it's also up for interpretation, and the Plan Commission will ultimately have the final recommending authority to the Common Council. So I have that. And then as I work my way towards the end here, I do want to have a land use discussion
about the future land use map, because there are 3 call-out areas that came up during the discussion of the steering committee that really the steering committee said, let's default that one back to the plan commission a little bit because they are sort of some, I don't want to say controversial points, but points in discussion you've already had a conversation on either at some point in the past. So I'm available to talk through any of these conditions, the goals, the objectives, and the strategies, not conditions, but the strategies, and be available for any questions on those ones before we get to land use.
I just, had a thought in terms of sustainable development and smart growth. And I agree with what's in the plan, but there were just a couple things that resonated with me that when I talk about sustainability, do we hit the economic sustainability or the financial sustainability well enough in this document?
I think our economic development chapter does, because our economic development chapter specifically, it's not on here, it was in the last time,
Right.
but it's actually in your packet.
I remember we propped that up a little bit.
Yeah.
But, I was just looking at these sections, if there shouldn't be a little cross tie-in or, but anyway, that was my only thought on that.
Yeah, so kind of pulling back to the economic development section, there's talks about obviously growing the business park, diversifying the business park so that we are not hit by downturns in an economy, diversifying our downtown, making sure that it is livable so that we have, again, a diversification of land uses in our downtown. We don't have a proliferation of only residential or only commercial. We've diversifying those things. So yeah, I think there's elements without this one that also get at it without specifically stating this is a sustainable element goal. But yes, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
No one else? Go ahead.
I appreciate the emphasis on the traditional neighborhood model, having the small front yards, the alleyways in the back. I know we've talked about that in the past as kind of the southeast master plan was going to incorporate that.
I'll show you some of that
Okay.
in a bit here.
Okay. Also appreciate the emphasis on requiring street trees in new subdivisions, which I know the park board has recommended about a year ago and still needs to go to council, but
And that is a continuation of the current code. The current code does recommend, or the current comprehensive plan that we have on the books today does recommend street trees and subdivisions. I don't want to say that's
Okay.
not a new thing, because I know that was a hot topic at the council a couple years ago.
yeah.
But that is it's in the 2010 plan at this point, and the committee decided to keep it and move it forward.
Talks about becoming an eco-municipality. Is that an actual designation?
It can be. There's multiples out there to be a sustainable community, eco-community. You can actually be, your neighborhoods can be LEED ND if you truly want to get to that level. But it's just another one. It's like a Bird City USA. It's again a mechanisms to get to that point, a measuring stick.
And then on page 171, we have the cultural district master plan. It still talks about things like connecting George Street to the lock tender, which I believe we've determined is not feasible. So is this just like a record of what the plan originally was, or is this showing what we still anticipate it to be?
Well, the cultural district master plan has that recommendation. Until that recommendation gets out of the cultural district plan, that's fine. We also know that in 20 years from now, there could be some sort of technology change, or somebody grants us a big pool of funds to do something of that nature. Right now, it's pretty much financially infeasible to do. But if somebody was to make a very large donation that gets us up and elevated over the lock and over the water, there's components that could be evaluated. I think the city would probably be remiss to kind of pull something out in case there's something in the future. Because what ends up happening is if you apply for a grant somewhere, they're going to require you to provide documentation that your master plan shows that you're trying to do this, and I'd hate for us to lose it. It doesn't say we have to do it, but if it's an aspiration that we eventually want to get to, and if there's a funding source to do it, I'd hate to lose that.
And then we have a framework plan for the west downtown.
Yep.
On the east side, we have the cultural district master plan. I remember when we first approved that, though, it was really focused on the Front Street block. It didn't really look at the whole east side downtown. So I'm wondering if it makes sense to maybe broaden the east side to have sort of an east downtown master plan that goes beyond the scope of the original cultural district master plan.
We have a 2010 downtown master plan that is the entire downtown, both sides of the river, George Street, everything up. That's what Quayson is has the draft RFP to put together to update. The whole goal of that is to take the Cultural District Master Plan, the work of the West Downtown Vision Plan, the work of the Wayfinding Master Plan, the work of the Park and Rec Plan that is the Comprehensive Outdoor Rec Plan that does touch the downtown, take all those things and put them into an updated document. What we found out that when we did this process, and I think I mentioned it last time, is the businesses on the west side did not like the fact that we are treating the east and west differently. Now, that was the intention back in 2018 when we did the Cultural District Master Plan. It was talked about and it was very strategic. But I will tell you, in conversations with the property owners during the Business Improvement District meetings, which are all the business owners and the property owners, they would like one cohesive vision. And I think everybody in this downtown wants to be known as I don't want to say an art destination, but have a stranglehold on good quality community spaces and art. And I think what you've seen done with Pasquale's and the Gavick properties, what you've seen on the Gavick properties on Main Avenue with the large mural and others, I think the west side is doing just as much cultural related and artwork as the east side is doing. And that's the reason why they want to see a cohesive vision. Again, we're trying to get a little bit merge this east and west divide that we have going on a regular basis. But I would say the businesses cohesively east and west have said we need
The new back alley just went up.
the new back alley. Yes.
That was quite large. That's impressive.
Yeah. So they cohesively have said we're one downtown. We need to be one downtown.
Yeah.
So I would say the master plan that is in the 2025 budget, which will be, again, Quayson will be releasing that RFP in the next few weeks, is meant to update and get it one cohesive vision, which then again will replace anything that is outdated or will become the guiding document.
So then if we're going to have that updated downtown master plan, I'm just wondering why there's still kind of like specific ideas in this plan. Like, for instance, on the west side by the river where the De Pere Business Chamber sign is, there's talk about opening that up for public access to the riverfront. I think that's an excellent idea. But I'm just wondering how much are we going to leave to the downtown plan for like the specifics?
Well, the one that you're seeing in here is work that was done during this process, and I don't think the steering committee wanted to see it lost, specifically because if that downtown master plan takes 18 months, takes longer than we anticipate, we at least have something here that we can go after a grant and go after and do some stuff. When we started this process, St. Norbert was under different leadership, and let's face it, just a different time in their management and budget and everything else. And there was a lot of conversation, talks about cohesively creating a multi-use trail between the campus and the city. Not to say that that still can't happen, but I know the campus focus is just a little different right now as they go through some challenges, some changes. But those things are important to keep in the document. And so again, we don't want to lose anything. And that was what was talked about and engaged with the business, engaged with the community, those components. So, and they can be replaced. The comprehensive plan is meant to be a living document. So when we adopt the downtown master plan, whenever it's done, we have the master files for this. We will update the comprehensive plan and just remove out any inconsistencies and do those components.
Then last thing, the 2010 plan did talk about a Fox River Trail on the west side from St. Norbert to Ashwaubenon Park. Is that still kind of alive? Because it's not specifically called out in here.
Yeah, so that one is alive. I would say it's part of it was included in the downtown component. So if you go, there's an appendix that you haven't seen yet, but there's more of those elements that are in there, and one of those components. To that fact, Peter and Quayson have tried to work with the UW capstone project to actually get that goal as a UW planning students capstone group project.
Wow. That's cool.
So we are trying for it. We've tried 2 years in a row now. We will still continue to try for it. But we know that with Brown County extending the trail from Ashwaubenon Park through the Brown County Fairgrounds, through the wastewater treatment plant, there will be a trail that will now end at our boat launch and at the Brown County Fairgrounds. So we know that we have to pick that up somewhere, and that's part of the hardest part in this one is going to be getting through, around, or near those residential neighborhoods that have homes right on the water. And so whether or not that trail comes out into the street on Fort Howard or comes back, all that has to be discussed, but it is not an easy project for sure.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, good. Good questions. Everyone else have any more questions before we go on to anything else? Go.
All right. So I know it's a very small map, but we are about to launch in preparation for our public hearing or public open, I shouldn't say public hearing, public open house next month, next Tuesday, actually. So you should see social media pages and everything kind of pushing that out there. But we have at the community center, right, Peter? Yeah, the community center next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. We'll have all the goals and strategies that have been talked about so far. Land use map printout, but we're also launching an interactive map for the public to engage in the future land use map discussion. So if they want to zoom into the map, call out a question, do something else like that, that will also be launched during that time.
Next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday. Tuesday. The 30th?
That's the 30th. What time?
6 o'clock.
Sorry, I'm just going to put this in here right now.
At the
Because I have no life. Yeah.
So that'll be up for discussion. There's 3 areas I want to talk about here today. One of which you saw actually probably within my first 4 months of me being here, which is St. Anne's Church. If you remember that, if you were on Plan Commission, then there are a few of you who are still here. Talked about St. Anne's came and asked for an additional commercial space on Chicago Street. They have space that's sitting there. They've split it off just to split it off because they can do that without having to go through a land use discussion. But they own a small piece of property that they had requested to be transitioned from private institutional, i.e. church, to a more commercial designation to match the designation for the Aurora Clinic next door. At the time, we went out through public comment. The proposed user at that time was an O'Reilly Auto Parts. I don't think that was met well with very much fanfare to the public. But back to the question at hand, is commercial in that zone appropriate? And if it is, under this discussion, we would then host a actual comp plan amendment process to engage with the neighbors on this one. But question I have for you is St. Anne still is making that request of we don't want this property, we want something to do with it, we want to sell it. Is Chicago Street a good commercial corridor in that area? Now, again, we don't have any property in the city on the south side of Chicago, but south side of Chicago is Redbird Circle with all those commercial.
Ledgeview.
Yeah, all those businesses.
That's in Ledgeview, technically.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Wherever the gray is, right?
yep. So Redbird Circle is right here.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest concern, even with O'Reilly back in the day, was the fact that the congestion that we have on Chicago Street with the schools and all that sort of going on, it's kind of a hot mess anyway. At least
I think it was
the
that.
neighbors in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I think it was the neighbors had an issue with
there
they
was-
just didn't want that there. I'm not sure. It's, part
They also wanted the view shed from the park to the Chicago Street. That was a big one. Is when Aurora was able to expand, the neighborhood was promised. And again, that's not a statement I hold with a lot of validity because you can't tell a future council what the future council should do. But they were promised that there would be no more commercial growth at that point. And again, that's what the public heard or felt they heard. But again, you can't tie a future council's hands, I guess you would say.
There was quite a petition that was
Yes.
with a lot of signatures, and
So the steering committee said, we would like to keep it as is, but as per St. Anne's request, I said I would bring it up at this time as well.
yeah, I would. I know I was engaged in that to keep it as it was originally intended, and so that's kind of sticking with that.
Well, if I recall correctly, the council was somewhat open to commercial use. They just would rather have it be like a clinic or something. I know there was also some concerns with the residents about like chemicals and stuff at auto parts store. So I may be a little more open to commercial, but I agree the traffic's a concern and would need a traffic study and stuff.
Peter, Eric, to get something to a conditional use permit, and this is, and I'm keeping this out of the zoning, not conditional use permit, comprehensive plan amendment, that could be requiring a traffic study to make that change. I don't think there's anything that would preclude us from requiring it if St. Anne's wants to make that request. We may put it on them to say you must do a traffic study to make a comprehensive plan amendment. Comprehensive plan is a lot less, I guess you'd say, black and white than zoning and conditional use permit. It's a little bit more, I don't want to say flexible, but I don't think there's ever been a case where I haven't seen that be a legal opportunity. And I
I wouldn't think not.
Yeah.
It sounds like that makes sense.
So at this point, if I'm hearing and understanding correctly, we're not opposed to it per se in the right conditions, but maybe we haven't been presented those right conditions yet. And if St. Anne's wants to make that case, they're going to have to do some background research on traffic studies and some other components.
Yeah, and I'll say I mean, this is an infill, pretty desirable property right here, and hate to see that thing just sit idle. There's got to be something that can fit that niche. It wasn't obviously the auto place for whatever reason. I don't know if the traffic was a concern or whatever it was, and it could have been. But I do think there should be some kind of avenue they could pursue to make this beneficial for all. This is just me speaking. I mean, that's a pretty decent sized piece of property there. And you can't deny what's around it. There is stuff there.
Yeah. So if you follow my mouse, it's hard to see on there, but it's roughly it's not that entire purple piece. It's here.
Dental office.
Yeah, it's about if you took that diagonal line and made it straight, it's about that size.
Yeah.
Synergistic, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's a dental office that is now
Mac Dental.
just across Mac Dental,
Yeah.
just in Leadview,
Right.
800 feet from the pier, and that's all they could find. You could just imagine if something like that for the residents would be there. You know, so I think we're on the same page that way, hopefully. And I think we learned that lesson with the last vote we had 5 years ago. I think I was COVID at that time or something, but so I didn't. Oh, sadly, I wasn't part of that vote. That's too bad.
You weren't. It
That's a
ended
shame.
up being a tie, and so it wasn't approved.
Oh, gosh darn.
Yep.
But yeah, you just don't. I don't think you can't leave land alone. Explore everything. That's why we're here.
Okay. I think it gives us a little bit of path of avenue on this one.
And then I'll just add to the Mac Dental tried to go on Chicago Street.
Yeah.
And that one, I know the concerns were more to do with not some, well, traffic, yes, but it was also because its rate would be right next to the school district. And the people just didn't feel that was a good fit next to the school
Well,
district.
clearly nothing can go next to a school district.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get that. But now, if this was an option for them, that could have been something.
Yeah.
I know the Henry Gills property was a something as well. I just hate seeing businesses that want to be here not being accommodated. And this is just timing. This wasn't available, obviously, I don't believe, back then at that time. I don't
And
think.
they didn't make a request to do it. It was,
Right, yeah.
I mean, that was the Mac Dental on the Henry Gillis property was in 2020. Mac Dental obviously only went in 5 year or 2025. So there's been a 5 year span that they probably were looking at their growth plans and studies.
Sure.
This could have been accounted for, but they never approached us with that.
Right, totally understand.
So,
Totally understand. Yep, that's important to note.
So in terms of this one, I would be reluctant to bring it back to you as part of the whole comprehensive plan update, because I would feel that the neighbors are going to feel they've been left out or they was hidden on them. So I would probably say we should bring this one back as a separate standalone item
That's a good idea.
if St. Anne's wants to address it again.
That's a good idea. Agreed.
Because then there will be a notification requirement to that neighborhood, and I think that's important, like we've done for other comprehensive plan amendments. The goal of this comprehensive plan map is relatively similar. Almost all the land uses are the same as what they were. We've clarified campus a little bit more with consolidating campus, and again, it's just an overall vision. But other than that, there's been a lot of the same has just been projected forward. The areas we're talking about tonight are, like I guess you say, the main changes.
What are we on? Item 11?
Okay, moving on to the next one
We're on 11?
is
We are on 11, yeah.
is we have the land use, actually, sorry, my line did not shift when I wanted my shift. This
It's really
is,
pretty, by the way. This is just a lot of color,
Peter, can I have the keyboard?
isn't it?
I was gonna say you're pointing to the wrong.
I know, that's what I
I'm
want.
visual.
I want to quit, I want to,
A lot of
Colorful.
green and yellow.
I'm going to quickly correct my map here so as the public sees it, they can know what area I'm talking about. There, okay.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, so we had previously talked about the area that's pointing to here. It's shown in yellow here primarily because that's what it was 2 years ago, but last year it got changed to a C color, a red color. That was for a commercial business that was going to be the Green Bay Nursery was looking to relocate here. Ultimately, that just didn't work. So at this point, we're starting to see some interest to go other different directions that may be more mixed use, could be more commercial. And then we also have, I guess you'd say, some other properties that are in this area that are, we're in a kind of an influx area. This is the Southern Bridge roundabout that is built at this time. But we have a very large institutional use, a 10-acre piece of property that's for sale. two smaller homes, a business park piece of property that has struggled because it's too small, doesn't have access. So the question is, as we look at this block here, what do we want to look at it from that perspective? Should we be looking at it from a mixed use perspective, straight commercial, straight residential?
Anybody? Seems like anything I say just kind of goes wrong anyway, so I'll let someone else jump in. I mean, it obviously could fit either where it is.
Yes.
That's a. I don't think you'd shut your door to any of them, do you really? Does that help? To not shut your door to anything?
Well, then
Nope,
it has
you
to
don't
be a
want
mixed
that.
use category.
And that's where my mind was going, to mixed use in that space.
And I'm trying to, I don't have it, let me zoom in on my map here.
We need houses and parcels and things.
All the above.
Trying to get to the zoning, or to that map, so hold on one second.
What are you trying to get to?
I'm trying to zoom into the legend on mine versus on here. Okay. So we have,
The media all
the classifications are, we don't have a true, I guess you'd say, mixed-use classification in here. We have an underdeveloped sort of area. We have a commercial area, multifamily area. And the single-family area does include multifamily components into it. So if we're going to truly find some components, commercial redevelopment or otherwise, commercial redevelopment category is probably the closest because it would allow for us to be flexible. So right now we have commercial and commercial redevelopment. I'm guessing that's probably the best case scenario. Let's call it commercial redevelopment, and that gives us the most flexibility.
Everyone good?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Examples of commercial redevelopment, just for the group's benefit, is that in the current code is, or in the current plan is north of Main Avenue between the former Montessori School and Quick Trip. That entire block, that entire area, sort of that Main Avenue block is like a commercial redevelopment. By doing that, it allows you to do multifamily, mixed use, stuff like that.
That's good. Yeah.
Keeps your doors, I mean, you're open to
Right.
Right.
multiple things.
Okay. All right, so that's that one. And then the last one for discussion is, Alderperson Hanson, you sort of addressed the southeast area. And so this is where we talk about a massive change. And so this is one that the steering committee looked at actually about 2 or 3 years ago, which is the southeast area part of the community. I don't have a copy of the current 2010 plan on here, but primarily we had shown business park growth to the south of us that encapsulated almost all of, I guess you'd say, the remainder of lands that were in the city of De Pere at this time. If you follow my city boundary, it's this red line that you see jogging through here. But we plan for outside the city boundary in terms of if things were to happen in the future. So I have a couple changes that need to be made to this map about relocation of Commerce Drive and some other things. But in general, what you're looking at here is a kind of town center component. So we recently heard about a town center project in Lawrence, where they're talking about doing mixed uses and commercial and some other components. Very similar nature here. And so this is being modeled, I guess you would say, after the Smith Crossing in Sun Prairie. And if I can provide you with sort of an example to follow. That is an area that is adjacent to a state highway. It's adjacent to more dense land uses. It has, at the core of it, it has a YMCA. It has community-based residential facilities, senior housing. Gradually radiates to less density, to townhomes, more of your traditional neighborhood development with alleys and smaller lots. And as it gradually radiates out to more of the natural resource areas, it gets to more conservation subdivision and larger lot subdivisions. And that's exactly what you're sort of seeing here. Our site lays itself out to that one, where we have higher density along the highway corridor. And then as we migrate in towards the Fox River Trail, we start to see a little bit more of the natural resources start to pop up. And we try to preserve those natural resources, have green fingers to connect all of these areas, pathways and green natural resource areas, gradually radiating out to our continuation of our single family that we see on the Ryan Road and stuff like that. So that's one that was looked at pretty heavily by the steering committee as well as by the consultants, and that's where a lot of the data is behind it. Again, it is tweakable, but this is, I guess you'd say, the recommendation from staff, from the steering committee, as well as from the consultant is we have a housing crisis. our business parks are becoming more automated and taking up a ton of space, and they're not providing as much value per acre. And so pivoting from straight 100% business park to a kind of combination that would allow for some business park growth along the highway with still having some opportunities for residential.
Very good.
I completely agree with that. One question I have, Dan, we had that one person who approached us about a coffee shop. Rockland Road wasn't the best location. They found a different location. But just wondering kind of where you imagine a retail corridor being in this area.
That's everything you see along retail along Rockland. The issue that you had about the coffee shop was we also didn't know if the coffee shop was going to have its house taken out because of the future alignment of the road. So there was going to be, or they wanted it to be in our business park category, which didn't fit with the business park category. So that one, I don't disagree that it isn't appropriate in the future. It wasn't the right time for it in its current location because it could have been acquired for the entire process and it would have cost more to acquire a business, relocate a business, do all those components. So that's the reason why we didn't sell them any city property. And then we would have had to also spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to extend infrastructure down to them, which would have cost them and was infeasible at that point. But in this case, anytime that you see this kind of pink hatched area is sort of that radiating corridor of where commercial, neighborhood level commercial would happen.
A lot of areas.
Pretty exciting thinking about.
Yeah, it's
what it
really,
could be.
yeah, really exciting. Yeah, like we're saying up here, it's pretty exciting what we're looking at in the future here. Alderperson Hanson, were you good?
Good.
Okay. Dan?
Our next steps with this one are obviously the public open house, but we're also going to schedule meetings with property owners that are in the city of De Pere. I've met with them all individually, but I'm going to host one property owner meeting for everybody who owns property in that area. There is one large landowner who is a developer who is in the realm of kind of more large scale commercial that I don't think the market can absorb here at this point. Large scale commercial is what you're seeing on 172 and GV by Costco. That's taken a long time to get to that point, and it has a Costco, it has 172. We're not that. We're a little bit further away from that one from a visual standpoint. So this one's probably somewhere in the mix of like that neighborhood level commercial, the Walgreens, the daycares, those components that provide great neighborhood level service, even a small grocery versus your typical larger strip malls and stuff like that. There still may be some strip malls in here, but I tend to say if you're going to have a strip mall component to it, if you know Cardinal Lane in Howard, right at Cardinal and where the YMCA is, there's the kind of 3-story kind of strip mall there that has first floor commercial and residential above. You can providing a mix of uses that helps sustain you over time.
Okay. Done?
I'm done with that one. If you want to go into the implementation plan, we can. Otherwise, I'll bring back the next time, the next round at the next time.
I think probably bring it back the next round next time. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Everyone good? Thank you. Again, every time we just keep learning more and picking up more information. So it's just going a good direction, and hopefully people can make it next Tuesday. Community Center, 6 o'clock. It's on my calendar now.
Mine too.
Pretty excited about that. All right. Up next. I'm sorry, I'm getting there. Item 12, discussion about site plans received since the August 2025 Plan Commission meeting and review the status of recently approved development projects. Peter.
Thank you. Just like we do every month, this is the update of site plans that are currently either under review or that have recently been approved and are under construction. If you have any questions about a specific site plan, now is the time to ask.
Anybody? Give you a second here. Alderperson Hanson.
The Tectron tube, that looks like that concrete replacement is not in the right of way at all, or maybe just a little bit by the driveway.
Tectron tube was an expansion of a driveway and then the addition of some pavement on the south side of the building. The driveway does connect to the right of way, so part of that driveway that is being expanded would be in the right of way.
And then they have on here coniferous deciduous trees. I don't know if they're adding the trees or if they're just pointing out where that's already located.
There was a requirement in the original site plan that goes back to about 2009 for there to be some trees on that side of the building. They never went in. As part of this site review, it seems like we're being very eccentric on requiring trees for a driveway. We just utilized the site plan to identify trees that either were going in or that had already recently been installed so that they meet the criteria of that 2009 plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you on that. Peter, up next, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by me, seconded by Alderperson Hanson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're officially adjourned.